Keith Urban, the boy from New Zealand's rugged coasts, once clutched a guitar not as an instrument, but as armor. He was never meant to disappear in Nashville's crowd. With pain in his past and fire in his voice, he didn't just play country music, he redefined it. Every chord he struck carried lightning. Every lyric echoed survival, until Grammys, platinum records, and roaring crowds surrendered to the man who turned his wounds into anthems. Nicole Kidman, born under Pacific skies and raised with quiet Australian grit, was never destined to be a supporting act in anyone's story. Once a shy girl silenced by a stutter, she became a force who disappeared into roles with terrifying brilliance. She didn't just act, she transformed, until the world had no choice but to hand her an Oscar and watch in reverent silence. When their worlds collided, it wasn't just a romance, it was a fusion of art and anguish. Together, Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman were the love story many believed in, united by music and film. But behind the spotlight, struggles with relapse, silence, and grief quietly wore them down. Now, 57, Keith has spoken. After nearly 19 years, their marriage ends, not with scandal, but with respect and sorrow. If their journey moved you, leave a like. For two lives showing beauty often rises from hardship. Keith's story began in hardship. Born in 1967 in New Zealand, his childhood was marked by a house fire and a father lost to alcohol. Music became his refuge and salvation, taught by a woman who first believed in him. Though fame followed, the pain of his past never left. "Music saved me," he said. Nicole, also born in 1967, faced silence and isolation growing up in Sydney, marked by a stutter and feeling like an outsider. Yet she transformed bullying into strength, finding her voice at the Australian Theatre for Young People, where everything changed. On stage, she was free. With Naomi Watts by her side, Nicole found belonging and purpose. At 14, her screen presence in Bush Christmas was already magnetic. The girl once terrified to speak had found her voice in the silence of cinema. She didn't just overcome, she transcended. At 16, Nicole Kidman made a bold decision to leave the safety of school and give herself completely to acting. For her, it wasn't rebellion, it was survival. Her parents saw the fragile brilliance within her and never questioned it. They believed in her before the world ever did. But those early years weren't glamorous. They were years of invisibility, of vanishing into roles because her own skin still felt unsafe. "I often felt invisible," she admitted. "It was easier to disappear into someone else." What others saw as fragility was in fact her deepest strength, a raw, unguarded empathy that would one day make her unforgettable. Nicole's power was born from silence, from pain, from being the outsider. She didn't act to be seen, she acted to be understood. And in doing so, she gave voice to those who had none. Her story is living proof that the quietest children often carry the loudest truths. What followed was not luck, but fire. A fearless ascent defined by raw, unflinching performances that blurred the line between acting and emotional truth. From a silenced child to a global icon, Nicole Kidman rose not because of the world's approval, but in spite of it. While Nicole battled silence, Keith Urban carried fire, the kind that left scars, not just on skin, but on spirit. Music wasn't a gift, it was the only way out. From smoky pubs in Queensland to dusty fairgrounds, he played stages far too big for a boy still learning to breathe through pain. At just 8, he stood under cheap lights with a guitar too big for his frame, surrounded by smoke, noise, and indifference. His parents, scarred by the fire that once took their home, drove him from one backroad show to another. Some nights, Keith later said, even music felt like it might disappear. By 15, his talent was unmistakable. Fingers fluent, heart worn thin. He won awards at Tamworth and stunned audiences, but even as trophies piled up, the world around him felt too small to hold the storm inside him. He crafted a sound all his own, blending country with electric energy, but to industry gatekeepers he was too country for rock and too rock for country. Keith Urban's rise was a battle against rejection and loneliness. In 1990, his debut went unnoticed, but he never quit. Moving to Nashville in 1992 with no contacts and no backup plan, he played backup gigs, sold songs, and endured years of silence. His band, The Ranch, offered hope, but eventually faded. By 1999, his self-titled album broke through, and For the Grace of God hit #1, a true resurrection for the Boy from Kabul tour. In 2002, Somebody Like You became Billboard's country hit of the decade, marking Keith's arrival. Yet, despite fame and awards, he felt haunted, alone behind the applause. Albums like Be Here, 2004, delivered hits, but the ache remained. His journey was never easy, each song a survival story, each stage a battle won. Meanwhile, Nicole Kidman faced her own fierce climb. Long before fame, she demanded to be seen, not just admired. From her wild energy in BMX Bandits to the haunting silence of Dead Calm, Nicole was a force. Her breakthrough with Days of Thunder, 1990, paired her with Tom Cruise, but she vowed never to live in anyone's shadow. Roles like To Die For and Eyes Wide Shut revealed her fierce ambition and depth, with accolades that felt more like defiance than celebration. The Hours, 2002, marked her true unraveling. Winning the Oscar was less about acting and more about survival. She refused safety, confronting grief head-on in Rabbit Hole, and later peeled back the facade of domestic life in Big Little Lies, resonating deeply with women worldwide. Behind the glamour lay quiet heartbreaks, miscarriages, fractured homes, children slipping away. Each role was a confession, a testament. Nicole Kidman hasn't just built a career, she's survived one. Before Nicole, before the stadiums and Grammys, Keith Urban had given his heart to another, Laura Sigler. She wasn't just his partner, she was his anchor. For nearly a decade, she carried his brokenness like it was her own. They dreamed together, of children, of a little house, of forever. But forever collapsed under the weight of Keith's fiercest enemy, addiction. They met when he was still playing beer-stained pubs in Queensland. She saw more than a rising musician. She saw the boy trying to survive. She stood by him when no one else did. When he moved to Nashville in 1992, Laura stayed tethered to him by trust alone. She wore his ring. But Nashville was brutal. Rejection bled into silence. And in that silence, Keith reached for alcohol and cocaine, comforts that corroded everything. She waited, hoped, and finally let go, quietly removing the ring and saying, "I can't do this anymore." Laura loved Keith, but after years of fighting his demons, she stopped believing she could save him. Her leaving forced Keith to face his darkness alone. Meanwhile, Nicole Kidman's life was a quiet storm behind the Hollywood glamour. She suffered miscarriages, embraced adoption, and lost her children's custody after her divorce from Tom Cruise, a silent heartbreak no one saw. "I loved him, but I forgot who I was," she admitted. Nicole's marriage was a quiet tragedy, but from its ashes, she found strength, winning an Oscar and reclaiming herself. When she met Keith Urban, him scarred by addiction, her scarred by loss, their bond grew in quiet understanding, not fame. They married in Sydney, faced relapses, wildfires, grief, and public scrutiny. Nicole stood by Keith, helping him find sobriety. They built a family filled with love and resilience, yet even their strong love frayed over time. When Nicole filed for divorce, it was not scandal, but a sober reckoning, a family reshaped by silence and loss. Their love story ended as a marriage, but their shared journey remains, a testament that even broken love can burn bright, turning pain into poetry and scars into light. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you never miss an update. Also, drop a comment below.